Hi, welcome to Change Learning 2, Deliberate Daily Lifecycling. So in this challenge, we're going to be using change learnings for what would, if this was a course, would perhaps be called a module. So there's a little bit of terminology change for you. So Change Learning 2, today we're looking at Deliberate Daily Lifecycling. So the reason I want to get to this really quickly is that you've just looked at the birth to addiction spectrum, which is that progressive spectrum that people can travel through, which we're looking to prevent people from either getting into or progressing through. And I wanted to share with you deliberate daily life cycling today and very next, because it is a foundational system that helps us to both prevent as well as recover from these mood imbalances, the impacts of ADHD, and also reward deficiency struggles. And what I want is for all of you participating, to be able to learn how to take conscious command over your daily life, rather than letting our existing habits and circumstances and all of our past conditioning continue to dictate our outcomes. So by mastering these 6 keys of deliberate daily life cycling that I'm going to share with you, you'll be able to break free from these autonomic, negative, habitual cycles that we've created, and instead create some new positive, what will become autonomic cycles, in order for you to have a sustainable and thriving life. So let's have a look at discovery number 1 here in deliberate daily life cycling. Let's take a look at your life on autopilot or your life by design, because actually that's the choice that we're giving here. So our lives either run on autonomic habits or through deliberate and self-created rituals. And in this discovery, what we're going to explore is how your daily cycles impact your mental health and your well-being, and demonstrate how you can reclaim control of that using the 6 keys of deliberate daily life cycling. So, our daily life cycle is what we as human beings, it's how we as a species operate. We are creatures of habit, and we're driven by these autonomic neural pathways in our brain. And know it or not, they are actually taking us on this daily life cycle. The question for us is really, are you creating this life? Are you creating your life today, the people in your family and your clients creating their life by neglect, or are we creating it by design? This is all about having this powerful way to be able to take full command over our lives. So to take a look at that cycle and how it works, the cycle has got these 6 key elements. So we've got your biobalance, so that's the biochemical balance that runs your brain and your body, how we think, what we believe, how we feel, how we act, and how we live today. And actually, you'll see from the arrows on the outside there that each of these has a knock-on impact to all of those that follow. And of course, there are some multiple connections in there as well. But essentially, where your biobalance is at impacts how you think in the day. How we think impacts what we believe. What we believe impacts how we feel. How we feel impacts how we act, and how we act impacts how we live. And how we live our life today will actually impact our biobalance. So our biobalance, as we've said, impacts how we think, which has that whole knock-on impact and everything else in our cycle. So let's take a look now, segment by segment, at some of the things that impact our biobalance, our biochemical balance. So that's the biochemistry, it's the chemistry, and also the electrical signaling that goes on in our brain. But without getting into that in too much depth, for example, in terms of our biobalance, we would look at repairing our depleted chemistry, our depleted neurotransmitters, which are the chemical messengers in the brain, our vitamins, our micronutrients. We affect our biobalance by what we put into our body, our food, our drink, supplementation. We impact our biobalance by looking at what things we need to stop having going into our body, things that we may be allergic to, toxins. A big factor in our biobalance is regular food intake, which should be at least every 4 hours, a little bit more frequently for some people, but we'll get to that down the road. And the other thing, which again we'll talk about again in a bit more depth, but every single thought we have induces a flow of about 700 chemicals. And those chemicals are either one or the other of either a positive chemical cascade or a negative and stress-inducing chemical cascade. More about that later. Our biobalance is impacted by our genetic polymorphisms. We can reduce the impact of some of those little variations that we have in our genetics, and indeed in some cases we can actually repair that pathway, that variation in our genetics to actually allow us to experience that gene in a different way and impact our lives very significantly in a positive way. The other thing that can impact our biobalance is neurofeedback therapy. So if we then let's look at how we think. So our biobalance is one of the things that impacts how we think. And let's have a look at some of the things that we should think about in terms of how we think. We've got our chemical cascades that we've just spoken about in terms of negative stress-inducing chemical cascades and positive calm-inducing cascades. We can use potentially new deliberate thinking practices, which changes how our brain is creating our thoughts and actually changes the chemistry and biobalance as well, changes our thinking, it changes what we feel. So things like meditation, yoga, acupuncture. We need to think about those old, which may be current, negative embedded neural pathways. We can lay deliberate new neural pathways, new positive pathways. The other thing we'll look at as well down the road is what you think about is what you get. And that's a really, really powerful thing and a really powerful tool that we'll get to look at as well. What you think is what you get. Moving your thinking to a what's good about that approach. We're so geared into thinking quickly, kind of almost defaulting to the negative thinking, that we quite often forget to look at what is good about what is going on. Again, another very powerful thinking technique that we'll talk about later as we go on through the challenge. How you think about what others think about you is really, really important. And I'm sure if people watching this and people participating in this challenge, some of you out there will be thinking that you've got this racing mind, you'll be experiencing a continuous racing mind, 20,000 thoughts a minute going through your mind, where your mind's always kind of switched on, your thoughts are always switched on, which leaves you really struggling with your thinking. So we have solutions for all of the things and techniques and skills that we can help you develop across all of these areas. As we said, our biobalance can lead into how we think. We've just looked at some of the ways we can adjust our biobalance to give a better impact to our thinking, and ways that we can adjust our thinking, which actually will help us to adjust what we experience and how we experience what we believe. And we need to be mindful of and work on what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about others. What do we believe about the things that are happening to us right now? What do we believe about the future? Do we have those old rat's den beliefs that are just living and popping up every single day and making life anything between difficult to unmanageable, causing those symptoms, those pathway symptoms that we looked at, anxiety, stress, depression, etc.? We can deliberately create new beliefs, and we're going to give you methodologies here to develop in a very deliberate way, to develop new beliefs, which of course actually rewrite those old negative, painful and destructive neural pathways. And what all of that can lead to is that we get to be able to create and embed new neural pathways.